Alright, so the audio might not be up to par. I don't have my headset today. I'm actually on a drive, but I wanted to get this out there because I've been wanting to talk about this movie for a few days now. So this came about because my wife and we're always looking for these type of movies, you know. I don't like straight up horror movies, at least not modern day horror movies as much anymore, because I think they're generic for the most part, and you know, a lot of times it's telegraphed, you know, the ending. It's not very original, and honestly, they're not really scary other than jump scares. The films don't creep into your soul, you know, in the way that horror movies used to for me when I was a kid, you know, and scare you hours later when you're trying to go to bed at night. That just doesn't happen much anymore. So I don't get as much out of horror films. But if you can add a psychological twist to it, make it more of a psychological thriller like this movie, that's usually what I'm more interested in watching. And the same goes for my wife. You know, it can't be just a super generic horror film. It can't be just a monster movie or something like that, or a killer on the loose, you know. There's got to be a psychological element to it. And so that's what intrigued us to watch this film. And it stars Claire Foy. And the story is a woman is, and this is from the outset, looking in, this is what the movie is. You know, a woman is institutionalized, right? She's put into, and you don't know why or how or anything going in, but she ends up in a mental health facility against her will. And you know, one of the main elements of the story is that she is plagued by, you know, seeing her. She had a stalker for years, and she's plagued by seeing this stalker everywhere she goes, and clearly she can't be seeing him everywhere. But, you know, in the beginning of the film, you kind of see it. She's moved somewhere, she's changed her profession, she's changed her location, she's changed her friends, and you know, basically no one knows where she's at. And she's done this because she, you know, to escape a stalker. Well, you know, dealing with this, seeing her stalker everywhere stuff, she knows that it's not all real, right? So she goes to talk to a therapist about it, and in doing this ends up signing some papers that kind of voluntarily commit her to an institution for 24 hours. And then, you know, what happens is she didn't realize she did that, and she wants to be let out, and she gets violent, she gets angry when they won't let her go, and so they make her stay another 7 days. And then, you know, it sounds really awesome. And for the most part, the movie was pretty cool. But I ran into a lot of plot holes that I just could not get over, you know, by the time the film was over. And so, I'm going to go into spoilers now. So if you haven't seen the film, you know, and you think you might want to, then stop right here, go watch it, and come back. But I mean, that's my overall assessment before, you know, with no spoilers, is that it was fun, it was a cool ride, but then in the end, I saw too many plot holes, and it seemed like lazy writing to me. Now, into the spoilers. So, I thought it was cool, you know, the idea of her trying to figure out, because she goes into this mental health facility, and then she thinks one of the orderlies there is her stalker. And now clearly, you're watching this film like, well, there's no way it's really the stalker. I mean, what are the chances that he would be able to, you know, procure this job? Like, how does this happen? Well, that's one of the major plot holes for me, because it does end up being him. It's really him, and he's an orderly at this mental health facility. Keep in mind that she got herself committed accidentally. So, how he would know to go and get this job? Like, did he find out she was in there by stalking her and then get the job? And how quickly do they hire people isn't there a period of time where they're doing background checks and all of this when they're hiring? You know, you don't get to start day of. It's not like, oh yeah, man, you check out, you could start tomorrow. It's not one of those type of jobs. You know, this isn't the fast food industry or you know, it's just not how it works. You don't get a job like that off the rip. It takes some time and some investigation. So that I found very unbelievable that he would get this job so quickly. Or, you know, that he already had this job knowing that she would go to a therapist that would get her committed to this very specific facility. And then another element of this this film was the idea that insurance, like there's all these mental health facilities all around the nation or all around the world maybe that are into, basically it's an insurance scam. They get people to admit to something in a therapy, and that gets them in there for 24 hours, and then they do everything they can to keep them as long as they can, and then as soon as something happens where either the insurance runs out or doesn't pay, then they let them go. So it's all an insurance scam, and that there are these facilities, you know, all over the place doing this constantly. It's like a little known dirty secret about mental health facilities. Now, but I'm sure this has happened before, but I don't think this is something that plagues our society, is these mental health facilities scamming insurance companies by having people involuntary committed. I don't think that's the case. A lot of civil rights issues there. A lot of issues with doing something like that. I don't think it'd be so easy to get away with. Anyway, movie was a lot of fun otherwise. I thought, you know, other than that, the glaring plot holes in this thing, I thought it was a pretty cool idea for a psychological thriller. I wouldn't really call it a horror movie. It's qualified as a horror / psychological thriller, but I could see more psychological thriller. But it does a good job in the beginning of making you question whether or not she's really mentally unwell, if she's really seeing her stalker there, if that could really be happening, or if it's all in her head. You start to wonder, like, you know, maybe she was already in this mental health facility for years, and we just didn't see that part, and now she's been returned there, and, you know, there's a lot of elements to it, but it's, you know, it makes you think. It makes you think and try to figure out what's going on, and that's you know, to its credit, it does that well. I think the most impressive thing about this film is what I found out afterwards. My wife was reading up on it, and she agreed with me too. Like, it was a little too far-fetched, right? The overall story that plays out. But the coolest thing, the thing that I found like most like, what? That is insane, is that this film was entirely filmed on an iPhone 7. I never would have guessed that. No way in hell. This was in 2018, and they filmed this entire thing using an iPhone 7. That's incredible. And that shows the day and age that we're in, that the camera quality on a cell phone is, you know, feature film quality if you want it to be. That's incredible. That is amazing to me. And finding that out about this film made it better, in my opinion. Just the fact, you know, from a technical stance, that's amazing. That is so damn cool to hear. Being as someone who, you know, records his podcast from his phone, films his YouTube from his phone, does all of these things, right? All from my phone. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that do. But there are plenty of people who have the, you know, capabilities with their phone, and they still go buy super fancy equipment. They're still making movies, obviously, with these big, ridiculous filmmaking tools. Cameras and equipment that costs tens of thousands of dollars. So it's really awesome to know that they did that, and I wonder how much that cut down the budget of this film. Let's see if I can find it here, the budget, because that's so crazy. That is so crazy. Look at this. Why was Unsane shot on an iPhone? Shot the entire medical thriller using an iPhone 7 Plus. Sorry, iPhone 7 Plus. Anyway, there are a ton of other, I wouldn't say a ton, but there are other movies like this. This, though, is the first one I've ever seen, and I was thoroughly impressed with that element of the film. So, if nothing else, if you haven't seen this, go watch it for that element, to see what you can do with a camera, that's in a phone, what you can do with a mobile camera like that, because it's quite impressive. Anyway, overall, like I said, the plot was cool. The premise was very, very cool, very intriguing. It's what made me want to watch it. But the execution of it, the leaps in believability, the leaps that you have to make to go along with this story, it's a little too much for me. So not the greatest. I felt like parts of the story was lazily written. Great premise, and I think it could have played out really well if executed a little bit differently, if not made into such a far-fetched story. If this was just about a woman questioning whether or not she's really seeing her stalker everywhere, yes, but the fact that it actually was him, and that he procured this employment so quickly, if it wasn't for all that, and just the way that the end of the movie plays out, I did like some of the stuff that she did to try to defeat or get away from this stalker. But overall, not that great. Not that great of an execution. But like I said, worth watching for what they did. It's worth watching just to see what an iPhone 7 Plus can do. And you may enjoy it. You may not think that it takes these leaps of faith to believe. Maybe, you'd be like, oh yeah, I get it. But there was a couple too many with the insurance stuff. I thought maybe that was going to be the main. And then, it turns out that one of the people that is in there was actually an undercover journalist, and that's the way everything comes to light in the end. And it was just a little bit too many things going on that worked out just perfectly to wrap up this movie. So, yeah. Great idea, not so great execution. Anyway, do with that what you will. Go check it out or don't. But those are my thoughts on it. And it seemed like my wife pretty much agreed with me when we were discussing it afterwards. So, okay, if you enjoy videos or podcasts like this, then please subscribe to the channel. What I like to do here is I try to do it daily. I talk about entertainment, pop culture, stories from my questionable youth, all kinds of stuff, really. It's just whatever I'm interested in, and hopefully other people are as well. So if you're interested in that and getting something new and interesting in your feed every day, then please subscribe to the channel, subscribe, favorite, or follow the podcast, also called Daily BS. And if you do that, if you decide to stick around, then I will talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks.